chat. Serious army run, come swarming. Tell them to feel they go off me and yo, my teach it my freedom, get it at all a stadium. Let me take it on corruption.
It's so sad now that I.
Assalamu alaikum to some of you and peace out to the rest of you. I was initially not going to start this one off with a peace greeting. But again, my audience is different at times. My audience that is plugged in is at times different from the ones, the ones to whom I'm speaking are oftentimes different than the ones about whom I'm speaking. I'm not sure if many of you in this audience are familiar with Minister Japp's page on Facebook. But on Minister Japp's page on Facebook, he has said that it's not game when brothers get passports and travel to other countries and trick, that it's lame, actually, that there's nothing to boast about when it comes to men going abroad and laying down with a woman that can't speak English. I'm not going to attack it for the same reasons that many others have. I'm not going to voice the same protest that many others have. I'm not allowed to sit up here and promote tricking as a Muslim, as you all know. I believe in being somebody's boyfriend, that is being your wife's boyfriend. So the rules are the rules. It's nothing personal. It's just the way the rules are for us. I still want to point out, though, that what he's pretty much saying is, and he owns a passport. Some people are responding by saying, well, you just mad because maybe you're on child support or something, you can't get a passport. And he said he owns one, but he doesn't buy the drawers, foreign or domestic. And we tend to agree on not buying the drawers, but we agree for different reasons. So I want to offer to you gentlemen another reason to, if you don't want to support this sort of thing, another reason to not support it, and that is tricking in general. But by the same token, I'm not going to go against it for the reasons that he will. If there's a problem with tricking, then of course, the problem would be something that God is well aware of, because he revealed marriage, but he did not reveal any permission for this, and rather prohibition on it. But by the same token, what Japp is insinuating is that there's some sort of validation when you're with a woman and you don't pay her. That's true, there is. What Japp is insinuating is that if you had to pay, you're some kind of lame. That's where we differ. Yeah, there's a validation, there's a type of compliment if she's with you and you're not coming out of cash for it. At least at the very least, there's not some sort of insult that's implied in her choosing you. The problem becomes that there's an assumption she is validating you. There's also a problem in the idea that you're going to be validated by a broken woman. We've already come to the point that we've already belabored the point and beaten the point. Even after we've belabored it, the point's already been made. The Western woman is broken, black or white, but we care about the Western black woman. However, we're forced to live with the reality that the Western black woman about whom we care is broken. So how, just like they say that the validation of a conquered black man means nothing to them, then how does the validation of the broken and conquered black woman who hates herself in the West mean anything to us? This is what we really need to understand. I'm not addressing this directly to Minister Jap, at least not yet, because I gave the peace greeting, so it's a peaceful message. And I don't hate the man. But wrong is wrong no matter who does it. In that regard, Minister Jap and others who have come against us before have sometimes been respectful and other times disrespectful. There's only one thing that's been disrespectful about what Minister Jap said. Unfortunately, that is the same thing that Stupid Sly said that was disrespectful, and it was outright slanderous, perverts with passports. Gentlemen, every one of you listening knows that when you leave the West in general, you are representing black men globally. Whether you know it or not, you're representing black men even from other countries. And other black men from other countries are representing you, despite how people may perceive the difference between the African American and other black folks. But see, besides how they may even perceive a difference between the Nigerian and other Africans, because they're distinct. Despite these distinctions of which people may be aware, black people still represent each other. That's the end of it. When I was in Malaysia my first time, I met a Yoruba man. I think he was actually from Lagos, but he was a Yoruba. I met him there. Nice guy, no trash talking, nothing like that. He actually resembled a close friend of mine that I met in Atlanta, but he's also from the Gulf Coast. We got along fine. We somewhat knew that each one of us would be representing the other. Now, he may not have known I was black when he first met me, but after talking, it's pretty obvious. People watch American movies, so they know the differences in how we sound. They know when I speak, they know, okay, he got the jungle blood, as the character said in that Spike Lee mockumentary, What If the Confederacy Had Won the Civil War? That's a quote from that movie. He got the jungle blood. Look, when it's all said and done, he says that we shouldn't feel like we've done anything unless we stay right there in that dysfunctional West with that dysfunctional wicked witch of the West and try to get her validation. Hold on. Don't forget, gentlemen. See, a lot of us are looking and saying, hold on, we thought he was on our side. And don't forget, gentlemen, don't forget, you may look at me one day. You may catch me saying something that's just completely not true. Now, if that is the case, more than likely, it's an accident. I just honestly didn't know something, because that happens. But if you catch me just outright ignoring something that I said previously that we all know is true in order to say something different, you can check me on it. Or you can kick me to the curb like I deserve if that's the case, unless I'm senile. But see, we can't put our trust in necessarily a personality. We have to remember that the platform here is based on principles, not on personalities, including my own. It is not about my personality. My personality may help the message go down smoother. I hope so. But the message is more important than the messenger. And if the message is something you know is inconsistent and cannot be true because you observed proof of the untruth of that message, then that means the messenger has been discredited. And that's the same for me. Now it's the same for him. What they said was we were perverts with passports. You know, as black men, that you represent other black men. When you travel, do you think that you're going to do something perverted and illegal or even just distasteful to the society, even if there's no law against it, and get away with it and make your flight back to wherever it is that you live? Do you think you're going to make the plane out of there if that's the case? NEU, new. That's exactly what I was getting to. He wants us to be stuck, not just with, but stuck with the same German shepherds he told us were German shepherds to begin with. See, how do we know it was German shepherds? Well, see, the minister is one of those super select guys, at least in Chicago he is. The minister is one that can go to the clubs on the weekends, and somebody who sees his Instagram account actually was the one that got me hip to the fact that you can see him get these on the Instagram account. You can see him going up with the music all loud. You can't hear nothing he's saying, and the women just respond all nice and everything else. And then he can turn around and talk this junk. And see, I believe what the other person told me about the Instagram account, because women haven't gotten on his page and said, you just mad because you don't get no punani, because you don't get no bees, because none of us don't want you. They don't get on there and say that. So apparently they know something. Now, if a man has another man saying that he's got receipts of him getting broads, and he's saying all these things, well, what does that tell you? See, what he said is these are German shepherds. They're trifling. They're inconsistent. Psychologically, something's wrong with them. And I mean, he had no reason to be bitter. There's no reason for him to say this out of bitterness. It's not about the draws he didn't get, or about him being mistreated, or about him being shown that he was less than, about him being treated any worse than. No, he's been treated better than most men. Most of us men are not going to find that. Most of us men are not going to have the success that he's had. Most men in general in any part of the world may not have the success, if you want to call it that, with women that he's had. But what he's saying is it's not really even success. He's saying I'm on the inside. They throwing them panties at me, but it's not really success because they trifling. You calling them, trying to set up a date with them, and they lying to you on the phone if they choose to answer the phone at all while I'm blowing their back out. He's giving us the game. The's saying to them, the thing is, I'm in their house. I'm in their apartments, and they got these little mattresses on the floor, maybe even an air mattress. Their kids are staying at their mama's house. They got a baby daddy they can't put on child support because he ain't got nothing, so they're trying to find some other sucker. They want me to take the condom off and skeet in them. I'm like, no. He's sitting up telling us how these ladies that seem so unattainable to us are actually trifling in their personal lives, and they're not even hiding it from him. Gentlemen, what does that mean? That means, gentlemen, that he's the one that gave you the justification to get the passports and fit the guck out of the West in the first place, even if it's just for a wife. Now, he can't justify traveling to trick, because if you believe in tricking, you don't need his justification. And if you don't believe in it like I do, his justification would not suffice, nor would mine. I won't tell you to do it, but I know that some of you are going to do it regardless of what I say. The point is, you're not going to change your moral idea simply based on me or him. But nonetheless, if you're going to get a passport just to find a girlfriend or a wife or to trick, you're going to find a girl that's going to treat you right for however long you're with her, or rather, better yet, a grown woman that's going to treat you right for however long y'all are together. See, you have every right to do that with the passport and not stay in the States, because he set up there and told you, I'm out here blowing these German shepherds' backs out. He just he's one of those that gave him game. He's one of the main ones that did it. And he may have been going at the tricks. It might be right, JT 9000. Maybe he was just going at it. But what he was really going at was guys that don't succeed with the wicked witch of the West. In a nutshell, he's going at the guys that do not succeed with the wicked witch of the West, or just don't want to be with them. The ones who prefer, whether it's the pros, the girlfriends, or the wives, the ones who, for whatever reason, prefer the women from these third world nations. What's going on, Liam? Bom dia, A. LaRue. Yeah, he's going after them dudes. He's going after the average normal man that he was previously advising. Now, I'm not saying this out of hatred. But I do want y'all to keep this in mind. The same one that's going after passport cats right now, whose apology video was private so we can't even see it, but whose posts were public, that same one exposed them as German shepherds from the very beginning, barking and growling at us, but living in a damn kennel in their private lives. telling us we ain't never gonna measure up, but then hiding nothing from someone like him. I'm not knocking him because they like him. What I'm knocking is going after normal men. We got to understand that even if you fail with the Wicked Witch of the West, that just makes you normal. You see, the other thing too was that validation validation from that Wicked Witch of the West is not even validation. I thought it was, but it's sort of like our actors ticked off because they're not going to get Grammys and Oscar awards. No, I'm sorry, getting Oscar awards. Getting the Essence, the Ebony, the BET awards. Okay, that should actually hold more weight with us. Maybe not BET anymore. But the point I'm making is that it's just like us when we sit up always looking for approval from the same society that took us from home and oppressed us in the first place, had us build everything for them at gunpoint, and then wants to turn around and tell us that we need to pull ourselves up by the bootstrap. It's the same ones. Getting their approval means you're doing something wrong. That's all that means. Well, it's the same thing here. See, I'll put it like this. It can be a talent. It can be, but it can also be something else. If you can walk up to a busted vending machine and you can put in a dime, but then you can tap the machine in certain places before you put that dime in, and then you get a 75-cent snack. Obviously, the machine is broken. Now, you might have a talent for understanding the machines in general, but the fact is that the machine is broken. And so your ability to get the snack from it does not mean that you actually have the money. It means you understand that broken machine. Now, do you understand it because you understand the machine in general, or because you understand broken vending machines? That's the question that's not always answered. Some men understand the machines in general, meaning some men understand the gender of women. They understand women as a gender. That's rare, but they do. However, there are other guys there are other gentlemen that will tell you straight up that they only actually understand the broken ones. See, even Giovanni Casanova, he actually said at one point that the first thing he learned to sexually conquer so many women was to know which women to pursue. He didn't pursue every woman. He had to know which women to even approach in the first place. He learned to profile them. And therefore, he simply cut down on his rejection rate. Yeah, it's true. These guys like these game coaches, they'll say it's easy. Now, Coach Greg Adams, he might actually be on to something. It's possible. Darius doesn't seem to coach. I don't know if Darius is out there dating coaching so much. I'm not sure if he is. Locario, though, he's done that too. Talking about, oh, it's so easy. But then he's in an open relationship. Best believe if he's in an open relationship for long enough, she's getting more dudes than he's getting broads. And that's not his fault. But that's still unacceptable to any man in any culture, really, with a few exceptions. And by the way, cultures that do have polyandry are declining cultures. The numbers are already declining. Guess what one of the reasons is for numbers declining in polyandrous cultures? Cultures where men may share a wife. Usually when they do share a wife, they're related to each other. So they're siblings. So at the very least, they don't have to raise the children that are not completely unrelated to them. At some point, even they are not even being genetically insulted. But those cultures are also on the decline simply due to population decline. It's not just the number of babies they can't have. It's also the fact that these men will leave. They will fit the guck up and walk away from these villages at some point and go live in an urban environment where that's not allowed. There's some mountainous communities, I think, in Nepal or Tibet where they do this. Man, and people ain't staying up there for long. Those women are moving to the cities where ain't nobody doing that. They're moving to live with some people that are not doing that anymore. Because they're just like, no, they can't be treated equally. They know that. And every woman knows she cannot treat different men equally. There's not a question about that. I asked my wife, can a polyandrous woman treat her husbands equally? My wife said, hell no, she can't do it. It's not possible to do that. Not just love them equally. What she said was they cannot treat these men equally. And we already know that's the case because look how they treat Minister Jaff. I mean, if what I heard about his Instagram account is correct, it's proof that they're treating him well. Alan Roger Curry. Yeah, Alan Roger Curry, he actually put a phone conversation that he had recorded with some lady to show how they treat him and how they do whatever the hell he tells them. But the thing is, again, these broads are broken. So it's not really saying much. That validation, granted, it may be that they've got a skill. But you got to understand, gentlemen, what they're saying to you. What's going on, man? Tomorrow, I saw your live earlier. I didn't go on, but I saw your live earlier. I would have thought you were still live right now. But see, these guys, they've been sitting up here bragging about a particular skill. But see, Book of Alpharonomy, Prepare for Takeoff. You know that gentleman. I've had to refer to him before in a particular story about denying validation. He was the one that taught. It was him that told us about denying validation. And I've relayed that story. Book of Alpharonomy. I was showering earlier, and Book of Alpharonomy. I was listening to his video on the speaker while I was showering because of what he was dropping. That man said his one regret is being the side dude to married women, or even if they were just living with another man. He regretted being that dude. He ain't proud of that. As much as these cats want to sit up here and talk about you not being select, which actually means you're just normal, as much as they want to do that, you gentlemen got to understand something. And I know from firsthand experience, I didn't even want to be that dude. I turned it down. But I already know that's actually easier at times than it is to be the main cat, because you live in a society that encourages them to be sluts. So all they're really saying is somebody else is over here paying so you can play for free. But if you were paying, then I would play with somebody else. That's exactly what they're saying. What's going on, Sir Obadiah? Who's happening, Edward? Spec streaming, you get it one day. And when you do, man, don't apologize. Now, I mean, I'm not going to tell you the trick. I'm not going to tell you to fornicate at all, but that's not personal. That's religious. But what I am going to say is that even when you start looking for your legacy, you start looking to marry, start a family, get that passport, bounce, don't apologize, and don't hide it from anybody once you're doing it. Let them know, yeah, that's right, Yoko. I'm over here in this country right here, being treated better. Because you know what happens? You can actually be a better person. You can treat her better when you're being treated better. That's another thing I know firsthand right off the bat. And one thing you got to live with 24 hours a day, even when you asleep and you unconscious. One thing you got to live with 24 hours a day is your conscience. Now, conscious is different from conscience. I know people like to speak Niglish and mix these words up, but as long as you are conscious, and even at times when you're unconscious because you're sleeping, you still have to live with your conscience because you're going to remember what you did. And if that's one of the things you did, you were up there committing adultery with somebody else's wife, you're going to remember that. The good dreams you have after that are going to be the dreams where you forget that's what you did, or you dream that you turn that opportunity down and you wake up and remember, oh, dang, I actually went through with it. See, you don't escape that. None of us do. Even atheists, if they don't, those who believe that there's no God, they can still feel a conscience. And so even in that case, and if there are any of you in here that don't believe in God, you could tell me if I'm wrong, but you still feel a conscience and you still got to live with it. So if that's the case, then imagine if you expect to be resurrected out your grave one day and have to stand in front of a Lord whose throne is bigger than Jupiter and give an account for the decisions that you made and things over which you had control. Imagine that. So what's going on, Black Uru? So when he sits up and he says this stuff about the passports, remember, if you want to engage with him or anybody else, but especially him in this case, all you got to say is, yo, minister, church check in. You were the one that justified it to us from the very beginning. You told us what they're like. We didn't know. Remember, we're the guys with no game. We lame, we weak, we whack. They wasn't picking us, at least not as often as they were picking you. We certainly didn't have the experience with them that they've allowed you to have with him. And you told us what the insides of their personal lives were like. You said it. You weren't even talking from bitterness and you were telling us how bad that German Shepherd was. What you expect us to do? You pretty much wrote down the math problem. We just plugged in the final sum. We just worked out the equation. Passports, other countries, money goes further. Yep, exactly. They don't tell these, they don't tell the ladies not to travel. And even he doesn't say don't travel. To be fair, he didn't say don't travel. He just said he don't buy none for the most part, but he's also saying that, I mean, he's saying that you ain't validated if you're traveling and you finding them better over there. Like, why are you even messing with them? That's what he's saying. Man, look, one thing I know, I mean, I already told y'all what happened in my case. I traveled for work. I was actually married to my first wife, my first ex, when I left the country. And for a while, I didn't really know much of the difference. And then my friend introduced me to a widow. She wasn't no thought, dragging other men's kids behind her because she couldn't keep her legs closed. No, she was a widow. And no, she's not the one that killed her husband, her first one. But make a long story short, he came with the introduction. And I was treated quite well, even before I knew I was about to be treated well, before we even tied the knot. And every time I went to her country, boy, I was spoiled. I was actually, she and I were married when I met my current wife. My current wife and I were neighbors here in this country. And I've even told y'all before that there's nothing wrong with the first lady from the continent. Wasn't wrong with her. Her country did some foul stuff and ruined it. So it became dangerous for her to stay married to somebody from outside the country. Wasn't her fault, wasn't mine. Just so somebody kowtow to European pressure. But then fast forward, and I'm now married again. She's from the continent, and I'm spoiled. Now, the thing is, I can actually be a much nicer man myself because of how nice she is to me. I don't have to worry about crap test. That means I don't have to give him, just like I don't have to worry about being tested with him. It doesn't mean I get to be a weak pushover, but then that's not my personality anyway. I'm simply saying I don't have to deal with the stuff that all of us have had to deal with back over there on your side of the Atlantic. And even the minister who was aware and conscious enough to tell us how bad it is and that it's abnormal, and who will even say, no other woman on the planet does this. He'll say that, then turns around and says to you, don't go somewhere else for them. That's not player. That's lame. That's not game. Dre Gamster's right. That game it will get you killed or it'll get you stalked. He's just one of those that they don't want to kill. They're not setting him up for a robbery. That's not what they're doing. and actually want this cat. But most of us, the same game that he could, whatever game he could spit, it would get us laughed at, or get drinks thrown in our face, or it would get us set up for robberies. That's the same thing. Because again, they cannot treat different cats equally. They're not capable of it. And that's not something wrong with them. They're simply not made to have 2 and 3 men, let alone more than that. They're only made to be with one at a time, really only made to be with a few over a lifetime. They can only pair bond after a certain number over a lifetime. They'll lose that ability. So yeah, if one dies, they could actually love another, but certainly only one at a time. No, this is what they're made for. That's how they're set up. That's how they're designed. And there's nothing wrong with that. But they got to be honest with themselves and admit they cannot treat these men equally. They can't do it. So they may not be able to sit up here and treat one of us the same as they would treat Minister Jap if he walks up to them. He could walk up to them where they can barely hear him, because y'all been to clubs and you know it's loud as a mother cuss word up in these clubs. And I'm sure that hasn't changed since I became Muslim and stopped going to clubs. I bet you that's still the same. Can't hear nothing until everything is over, till they about to close it down. He's talking about using exactly that which is nebulous, cloudy, unclearly defined, subject completely to the approval or the disapproval of the recipient or the listener, never held to the same level of skill by the listener as by the speaker. In other words, the lady never has game because she's never needed it. And he's sitting up telling you that you are lacking this particular thing that will mess you up. And in the end, like I said, it will get you on child support, get you set up for a robbery, probably killed. It'll get you sick, and you hope to God that there's a cure for it. Or it'll get a drink thrown in your face. That's what it's going to get you. As a matter of fact, when you go abroad, there are things that you can do that would hurt or increase your chances, granted, whether you're talking about being a boyfriend or a husband. Hopefully both at the same time, ideally, but whichever one you're talking about being, yeah, there are things you could do that would hurt or help your chances. But you know what they don't call it? That's game. Even where I live, where fathers, of course, they're going to interfere. And to a certain extent, they're supposed to. But even where I live, one thing that you don't hear about is a woman trying to choose a man based on what other women want. That's not something. No, that's not it. Because sharing a man is not something they want to do, even though they can. 4 of them, up to 4, can legally share one husband at a time, and yet they don't want to do it. So they do not try to choose for each other. Absolutely not. That's something that would sound ridiculous. Now, the reason I know is not because I hang around women here. They got their spaces, we got ours. Reason I know that is because I was telling the dudes about it when I first got here, and I was in another town, more backwards and better one than the one I'm in now. Man, them cats is just like, so you gonna tie the knot? And I was like, not so sure about that, man. I mean, I don't know what y'all's women like. I just know that y'all don't want any foreigners marrying them. As long as y'all stay the hell away from Western women, especially women in my family, we straight. I'm cool with that. It led to some interesting discussions. But I remember the reaction when I told them when I told them, even back then, when I said that most of the women want the same few men. And that a woman, if a woman likes a particular man, I knew this before I knew about red pill and everything else. But one of the things I said is that if one particular woman likes a particular man, but her friends don't want that kind of dude, she'll say, no, that's okay. Because she wants their jealousy. She wants their envy. It's a bragging right for her. They don't necessarily brag. Hell, they may brag about how much money he has or how successful he is. But one of the things they really gonna brag about is how many other women want him. That is of the utmost importance to them. And they said, wait a minute, so you mean to tell me they're not picking for themselves? So they complain over here. They're complaining because we're going to factor in. We're also going to try to help them choose a husband, or we're going to look and choose for them. It's going to be one of them two. They're upset about that. And over there where you live, instead of them caring about what the dad or the brother says, they care about what the other women say who ain't going to marry him. What are they doing? Sharing these dudes? And I nodded my head. A lot of these cats used to want to come. I mean, where I live, a lot of cats used to want to go to the States. After I get done with them, after sitting down, having, a few coffees and teas with them, a few evenings, they just want to visit. They say, you know what? I just want to go to the Grand Canyon and take some pictures, man. That's it. I wouldn't want to live there and work there. And a lot of cats used to study over there too. A lot of them did. And here's what makes it funnier. Because the cats that used to study in the States, see, y'all know studying in the America and working in America, two totally different lives. If your government's paying for you to study, you could live just about anywhere. But if you turn around, you got to compete in that job market, that's altogether different. A lot of y'all know about that. We know the difference there because most of us have been through both. But a lot of them didn't know. A lot of them would say, well, I wish I could find a job and go back there and live. I'm like, wait a minute, you used to study there. Yeah. Okay, well, see, that's why you miss it, because you used to study. You were paid to live there by your government on a scholarship. Mess around and try to compete in that job market, and you're going to see the racism that I told you about that you think is not there, that you think is in the history books. No, it's still there. And add to that, you were sand ninja too. Oh, man. With that special religion that they hate, yeah, they're going to do to you what they did to me. Going to try to shut you out of that market. And see, but it's now that's one thing they may not believe me about right off the bat. But when I tell them about how bad the Wicked Witch of the West is, that's when even they say, man, okay, you know what? I just want to go back to the Grand Canyon. Or maybe they say, yeah, I just want to go and check out Guadalupe Peak, a particular mountain or a tourist site or something. Or I just want to go surfing in Santa Monica Beach, or I want to see Hawaii, go through the jungle or something. That's when they'll change that up. Because America is a very beautiful country. That's very true. I give it that. It's gorgeous. Certainly is. Its nature is astounding. It ain't the only country like that, but that is the case. If you are a nature photographer, then I'd say that the United States, Uganda, and different parts of Southeast Asia are probably also the Pantanal in Brazil, which ironically is a country to which a lot of you travel anyway. Pantanal and the Amazon, these are going to be the places that are the best to go. The U.S. as a country is probably going to be the best, probably going to be the best nation. But then different regions of different other countries too. I mean, yeah, okay, so that's because the nature's great, but the system has set it up to where what Minister Japp is telling you all is actually evidence that you're doing something right. Because he was the one that told you how bad it was. And I want y'all to remember something else before I go, because I'm not going to stay up long. I got to get up early tomorrow, and it's already nighttime here. Y'all remember somebody talking about Dom game division? Used to be woke, really woke, red pill aware. He was telling you what the games are. And then all of a sudden he starts calling dudes creepy and rapey because we can't read women's minds. Or because he saw some cat that was awkward and he starts saying, see, a lot of y'all, man, y'all creepy and y'all rapey, y'all giving off bad vibes. Y'all need to get to the gym, man. But y'all know who I'm talking about. That same dude. He told us that they were a mask, and that under that mask are fears and doubts and insecurities. He said that. So if they're hiding that, then how they going to sit up here and judge you talking about fears, doubts, and insecurities that you may not actually have? And doing all of this just to try to take the most resources out of you in exchange for the least. Okay, that's an act of war. To sit up and take someone else that's not even coming at you as your enemy and then blame them for everything that's wrong with you. You see, Spec Streaming, that's right. That's exactly what it is. There's somebody that they want to see rescued from, not just saved, but saved from their own bad decisions. So what's going on, LOM? So before I go, I just want to say, see, that's one act of war right there. Somebody sits up and tells you that they're engaged in a type of deception that they would never tolerate from you. That's what he says to you. He just told you that they were engaged in a war of deception against you. He said that. He's a combat veteran. He knows what's going on. He said he was in combat. He said what's going on, Ardema. He said that he was in combat before. He said that part of manhood comes from looking somebody in the eye while you're engaged in a firefight with them. My dad that has never been in a gunfight, that's a man if I ever saw one. Now, I'm not saying he was never about to get into one either. But what I'm going to do, tell my dad he ain't no man because he ain't never been in a gunfight? That's some more Hollywood stuff. But this guy set up and told y'all that. So he actually said to you that they're engaged in a war. Then when you get your passport and you say, I'm going elsewhere. Because it's actually unnatural to have to fight that kind of war. Then they want to sit up and say that you're unnaturally not a man somehow. That's exactly what's going on right now with so-called minister, the so-called minister. Again, this is not out of hatred. We benefited from him. He was, as I said, he exposed a good bit to us, and they could never come at him and say that it was because he was bitter. All those tropes, ad hominem tropes they have, they couldn't come at him with. They wouldn't dream of it. So that means they knew something. There you go, right there. They didn't come at him with it. And the funny thing is, even when we saw that video and we thought, I'm not going to say I personally, but a lot of people thought it was him in the video getting knocked out. Apparently that didn't change what was really going on. That didn't change what was happening to him every weekend at these clubs. So they knew something in that Chicago area. They knew something about that video we probably didn't know. They probably had reason to say, no, it's not him. Maybe in person, they could tell by the height or by the voice that it wasn't him. The point I'm making is that that video didn't mess things up for him from what anybody has said. Yet and still, he sat up and told us with no bitterness, but simply from observing. And if anything, he had a motive to defend them, and he got up and excoriated them worse than any of us have ever done. Then he sits up and says, don't use your passports to find better. Stay there locked in with them. What's next? He's going to go join the dime game division and go to these conferences. Anyway, gentlemen, I would do a panel, but where you guys are, it's the middle of the day, most of you. And on the West Coast, I'm sure it's still morning time. Where I am, it's already night, and I got to be up before the sun comes up tomorrow. We still got exams going, and I got to be security for them. But I appreciate you all listening. And I guess if anybody has any questions, then I'll answer them before I take off and turn in for the evening. I'll give anybody time to type them in before I close out. Thanks a million, Spec Streaming, for the compliment. Yeah, Cyan, as certain guys, they don't want to see have it. And the only thing I can think of is that if enough of us do just get passports and bounce for business and personal reasons, I think they understand that they've actually been the validated side dude. I think that's what's going on. I'm pretty sure that's been the case. What's happening, Sir Anthony? My guess, Cyan, is that they know, because, and as a matter of fact, I'm sure the minister knows because he's talked about it before. And even, Dom game division. Now I'm saying he's talked about it before. I mean, he said there's the guy on whom they cheat and the guy with whom they cheat. Even Kevin Samuels had a show, long live stream over a year ago, talking about be the guy with whom they want to cheat. Now that's the one that gets less insulted directly by her choice to a certain extent. But I can tell you that just like Alpharonomy regrets being that dude, I actually look back at the times I passed it up and said absolutely not. And I don't regret passing it up. Despite the lopsided nature of it and how all the validation goes to that cat to a certain extent, I'm still glad I didn't do it, because if we're going to talk about being pro-black and pro-black family, you can't talk that kind of stuff and then turn around and you willing to help the lady cheat, be the one with whom she cheated. That's true. A lot of them will say, even if you get a non-American, they'll say, well, you weak. You may not even get a chance to tell them that she's still a sister, just from another country. That's very true. Yeah, Red Sif, that's right. There's a certain, they got to brag. That's true, Red Sif. They have to boast and brag. Are the dating coaches lying by saying it's easy here if you maintain frame? What? Yeah, they are. Because when they say maintain frame, first thing we should say, when they say something like maintaining frame, we should say, what did you say? Because even though you can kind of understand what they're getting at, they still like to use these nebulous terms, and game is one of the nebulous terms. And that's one of the things that we really got to ask them to, we got to ask them to define. Even if you understand what they mean, just go ahead and say, hey, you know what? Just tell me what you mean by frame, so that just to avoid any misunderstandings, and just listen. Bruh. That's the first thing, frame. They're saying that it's easy, but the thing is, it's not easy because, look, remember this, as I've said before. Remember Steph Curry. Remember Barack Obama. Remember all of that. Yeah, hold on. I want y'all to see what Sigma said before we go. Y'all can see what Sigma said. You can see that the financially well-off black men are being almost preserved for the leftover WWs, the mayonnaise mafiosos. Yeah, you could. Because see, even well-off brothers, according to a survey that was taken years ago, even well-off brothers, unfortunately, still have to have more than men of other races to marry the same mayonnaise mafiosa. That is true. If that's what it takes, then we already know that that's like a confession on the part of her. If she's saying, well, I mean, I'll marry one, but he has to have more than one of my own men, or even the black man has to have more than even a Latino man to marry the same woman, they're pretty much saying we know that America is segregatory, that it's discriminatory. They're saying we know that. And one of the ways I know is because I saw a news special on that study. Now, in the study, they could not ask them, why does he have to have more? Because it was a blind study. However, some people that were reporting went to the streets and they asked passing by mayonnaise mafiosa women, why do you think these results were as they were? And some of these mayonnaise mafiosas said, well, you need a higher security deposit if he's black. You can't just go back to a white guy afterwards. And some said, well, see, we know they have to have more because we know they're going to face job discrimination. So they have to have more to get us through those tough times because they're going to face them. You know, I know how my dad is. I know how my brother is. They work in HR. They're going to discriminate. See, that's what's going on. Walaikum salam, Blaze. So next question is from K Mitt. It's going to depend on to which country you're going to move. But what I would say is with 10,000 US, you can get off to a good start in many cases. You could start a business that's ahead enough from the beginning to keep on going. You could do that. Like you could start a business ahead of the game with that, depending on where you go again. But that's enough to start because I'm not going to sit up and say, well, you need to save up enough to retire and not have to work, because that's not feasible, even when you factor in exchange rates. I mean, hell, you could be doing that till you're old, and then you might as well stay where you are. But I know that back in the 90s, when African American moved to Senegal with 20,000 US, he was doing well over there. I don't know what business he started, but whatever it was, he was doing well. Let's see. So yeah, people have if they're going to start a business, they've saved somewhere between 10 and 20 grand. Let's see here. Yeah, it's true that they say that that you're going over. Oh, the other thing too. I'm not knocking the minister, church check in, because he said don't go and wife up a hoe. We're saying that. I agree. I mean, I'm saying the same thing. That just goes without saying. You can't turn them into housewives. There are some guys that probably do that and they don't regret it, and others that do that and they regret it. But the thing I'm getting at is that none of us are sitting up here saying go over there and trick and then marry her because the box was good. What we are saying is that everybody over there is not selling the box. And again, this is the other thing too. They're not all poor. Now, I know that firsthand from my mans. My homeboy from my hometown, nickname is Dark. He told me about that. He's got no reason to lie about it. So that is definitely not the case. That as soon as you step or clear customs, that all of them are hitting you up trying to get that green card to get that visa. That's not the case. There are a lot of people that wouldn't mind visiting, but they don't want to live there where you do. A lot of people don't want to. For one, the U.S. has a reputation for being a dangerous place to live. So anyway, there are no more questions at this point. I really do appreciate y'all listening. This is what I plan to do. Tomorrow, my time. Tomorrow, my time. I'd say probably about not 24 hours, but I'd say about 16 hours from now. Somewhere between 16 to 20 hours from now, I plan to do another live if y'all want. So look for a notification about that length of time. And let me see. I'll give you all the time. Blaze and Stampede, what time is it in your time zone right now? I won't ask you the state you're in, but just tell me what time zone you're in and what time it is right now, please. And I'll give you all the time for tomorrow. Let's see. Okay, 12:28 there. So you're in Eastern Standard Time. Okay. So in that case, then it's probably going to be about 6 a.m. you all's time. 6 a.m. tomorrow you all's time. Yeah, sorry, LOM. I just saw what you were saying that maybe in the evening when you're off the road. But if you're on the road, then all I would ask is that you just use the hands free if you want to, if you want to jump in at any point. But it's probably going to be around that time. Now, I guess I could push it back to about 8, which is still a decent hour for me. But anytime between the two, because I don't know what's going to pop up then. I always get interrupted. So anytime between the two, check for notifications. And what I'll do is when I go on, I'll try to put or to schedule it a half an hour before, so that at least you all can see some minutes beforehand. So with that being said, thanks all for listening. I appreciate that. Assalamu alaikum. Y'all know the rest. I gotta go. It's late. Take care.